Okay, so ready to start then, Sangeeta? We're now moving from our practice session on. Thanks. Good evening, Sangeeta. Welcome. We'll wait for a few minutes. I'm sorry, everyone. We had a slight technical glitch, and I think we had to send out a message saying we would be late, but we managed to solve this. So I thank everyone for joining. I have with me today Sangeeta. Sangeeta is the Chief Sustainability Officer at PVR Cinemas, and it's a conversation that Sangeeta and I will be having, and we'd love to hear more views from all of you who are joining us about really some of the things that future thinking CSOs really need to think about in the country today. Sangeeta, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little about what you do and how long you've been working as a Chief Sustainability Officer, and a little bit more about you?
Sure. So first of all, it's PVR Inox now. So I've been with the company since 2018 as head of sustainability and inclusion first. And last year, the company felt that we needed a CSO per se, and I was elevated. Yes, over the last few years, there's suddenly been an upsurge on the need for a CSO, and you would see that across organizations, big and small. This need stems from the fact that earlier it was, the company management or the leadership that would assign priorities on sustainability. But more recently, it's been the investor community. And I trace this back to the global economic crisis, 2008, post which investors across the world started realizing that it wasn't enough to have a healthy balance sheet, and they also needed to look at other factors that contributed to sustainability of an organization. And that's how more recently the term ESG has evolved.
Sangeeta, tell me a little about what is sustainability really sort of, in the Indian context. How are we really viewing it? And we already have a corporate social responsibility law. So, I mean, doesn't sustainability sort of fit into something with that, or are these completely two different fields?
Well, if you look at the people from listed companies here who are required to report on BRSR, CSR per se is just one component of the larger picture in sustainability. It's just one piece. No matter what standards you're looking at, whether you're looking at GRI or whether you're looking at BRSR or you're looking at any other standard, you'll realize that CSR is only the portion where a company is looking at giving back to society. Having said that, it actually translates into certain other terms. For instance, many organizations, especially global American organizations in particular, use the term corporate responsibility. So corporate responsibility in its thing encompasses the entire gamut of ESG. However, when we say CSR in the parlance that we refer to it in India as Section 135 of the Companies Act, that is purely give back. That's purely and the way it's been structured in India is 2% of the average net worth of the profit of the last 3 years should be spent in development initiatives. Now, these development initiatives could be environment, they could be social, because there are lots of companies that are looking at spending their CSR. If you look at Schedule 7, it talks of environment as well. So there's a slight overlap there. But then looking at environment from a give back point of view, vis-a-vis looking at environment from a business from a business responsibility. For instance, let's give an example. ITC uses a lot of wood for its match business. It uses a lot of, I mean, there's the cigarette business is there, so there's a lot of paper that's used. Then there's a paper business, so a lot of deforestation happens on account of a lot of their businesses, and hence they realize that they would need to do a lot more to be able to compensate for what they're extracting on account of the businesses they are in. So that is sustainability. In order to be able to replenish what you take away from the earth, from Mother Earth, to be able to replenish it so that generations ahead, ITC is able to continue being in those businesses because it needs to extract, resources from that particular thing. Vis-a-vis any other company, say PVR, goes around doing a plantation drive. So that can come under CSR. But when we talk sustainability, we clearly map our value chain and we look at our footprint, and then we try to see what's most material that we need to give back in whatever terms.
So you're essentially saying that CSR is actually in that sense then a subset of sustainability?
Yes, it is. So CSR may or may not address your value chain issues or the issues that arise from the kind of business you're in. For instance, if you're a mining company, there's a lot of land degradation that you end up doing. Okay. and I mean, you end up, by virtue of that business, you end up degrading a lot of land. In fact, it's if you actually go and see a site, it actually disturbs one. It's that disturbing a site. And for instance, I was take a cement plant that is mining limestone. For instance, they're cutting, slicing hills and mountains. So as a result of the business to extract the ore, they're doing that. However, the work that they're doing in post use of that land, the reclamation work that they're doing, the rehabilitation work that they're doing, and the conservation work that they're doing in biodiversity, in the soil and the replenishing the soil and so on and so forth. That is critical to business, and that's sustainability.
Okay.
So that company, and on the other side, for instance, if we're looking at say Taj Hotels, and Taj Hotels wants to go and plant trees or things, so that doesn't. So CSR may or may not be connected to the resource utilization or the value chain of your organization, whereas sustainability will be connected to the value chain and the operations of your business.
Okay. So anyone, if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. Sangeeta and I will try our best to answer it. But going ahead, Sangeeta, our topic really was 5 things that a CSO must know. So as a CSO, what advice would you give to other CSOs, or what is it that you believe that in the next 3 to 5 years, it's very critical for someone who's working in the field of sustainability and perhaps leading a function? What are your sort of thoughts on some stuff that is really, really important right now, and how to think about it?
So I have a couple of slides. Would you share your screen, or should I share mine?
Just give me a second. Let me give you hosting rights. You'll be able to share it.
Okay.
No, there's your slide.
Is it visible now?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, so basically, I just put a couple of slides together just to emphasize the topic of our discussion. So clearly, and the first one refers to the initial conversation that Seema and I had as to the materiality aspect. So every CSO has to must know what's most material to his or her business or in an industry. Specifically, it's it's either or. So when I say material, and for people who are not familiar with not the dictionary meaning of material, but the sustainability meaning of material, it's nothing else but what's most relevant to your business. And when I've been referring to the value chain, that's exactly what I mean. That while reclamation of land is material to a mining company, might not be so to PVR Cinemas, whereas the people aspect is material to, and safety, and because the number of people that enter our cinemas every day, the people safety and security is extremely material to us, and might not be to another, might not be so much. Of course, safety is material to everybody, but reason why I'm saying it's more material to us is because there are thousands of lives. In fact, pre-pandemic, we were at 100 million footfalls annually. So that's the kind of numbers we're looking at. That's number one. Of course, if you don't know what is most relevant and material from a sustainability point of view, you will not be able to address it. And if you're not able to address it, you're obviously not being able to assess your risks in that area. Then the next one is about.
So the first one, according to you, is every person who's handling must know for their organization or their business what is the most important or key to them. Is that how?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And this is more connected to the industry, because it's the industry that defines how you do your business.
Okay.
And basis that your value chain might have a social impact, might have an environmental impact, might have high governance risk. So essentially, it's to be able to evaluate in very simple terms, evaluate in your value chain which are the riskiest areas and where you need to start working immediately and prioritize your strategy accordingly. So the next one is, of course, who are your key stakeholders and what are their needs. So if you're able to, if I refer to PVR, like I said, people, our customers are very significant stakeholders. And so we started in 2018 a program called Cinema for All, because we realized that there were a lot of people, essentially people with disabilities and the elderly, who were not able to come to our cinemas because they were not entirely accessible. And over the last 4 years, we've been working extensively on design, on assistive equipment, on technology, and also on content. Of course, content is not in our control, but we've been working to influence policy to make content more accessible, which actually means audio description for the blind and captions for the hearing impaired. So that's number two. Just that.
So Sangeeta, once again, so what you're really saying is that sustainability doesn't really sort of fit into this one parameter, which most people tend to assume is linked only to environment. You're saying sustainability can be anything that sort of, influences your business and helps your stakeholders to access and also not sort of impact the environment or impact your surroundings in a negative way. Is that a way to define it, or is there a better definition that you may have for us?
Yeah, you know what happened actually? What happened, the reason why this has happened is that many people in India, and this is, I've noticed this is very specific to India, sustainability equal to environment. Because what happened was in 2013, 14, 13, sorry, you had the Companies Act mandating CSR. And then suddenly there was a lot of talk about sustainability. So it was kind of taken for the wo CSR hai or ye environment hai. Whereas we are going on saying E, S, and G, which is nothing else but what we said: sustainability is equal to people, planet, and profit. So it's actually, I mean, how can we say that sustainability is environment when we ourselves are saying E, S, and G? And when we've been talking about the 3 Ps, and when we've been talking about saying, so that it's actually somehow subconsciously, unconsciously, it has gained that balance. But that's not true, because sustainability is about all your stakeholders. It's about every single stakeholder that the company thinks. So, for instance, and that's why we talk about having. It's extremely important to engage with your stakeholders, because only then do you know what is it that they need, and what is it that how can we fill that gap.
And so, here you're saying the stakeholder is not necessarily your board or your company people. Of course, they are also stakeholders, but it's also your consumer. It's also people who are supplying goods to you. It's also people who are perhaps, maybe not working in your organization, but working with your organization.
Absolutely. So any group of people who have anything to do with the organization, it could be so for instance, the key builders, the developers are very important stakeholders for us. Then, of course, all our suppliers and vendors, the largest and the smallest, everybody is key. For instance, if the bun doesn't arrive on time, or the bun is not fresh for the burger, that impacts our CSAT as much as faulty projectors or something else, or air conditioning not working, or the cleanliness not being up to the mark. So basically, and that's why it's important to be able to address and understand the needs of all stakeholders, and our relationship with them, so that that continuous engagement is what is the crux, to be able to understand how we can go together, move together for a longer haul. And that's what sustainability is all about, right?
Okay, so let's move on to your third point, which says, what parts of your value chain are most vulnerable to ESG issues and the critical issues to be addressed? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so of course, no organization can do everything all at once and address all your things. So you've got to be able to prioritize what's most important. So, for instance, if the reason why we went and launched a complete program for access of people with disabilities was, of course, one was that the management and our leadership benchmarks in our cinemas with the best in the world. So they were seeing that there is an increasing trend in Europe and US where accessibility is extremely important, and closer home, their own mother was having trouble climbing steps. And that's when they realized that, there is this big number of people that probably want to come and watch movies but can't. And then, of course, there was the regulation, the Rights of People with Disabilities Act 2016 had been notified, and a couple of our cinemas had got notices as well. So point is, at that point of time, if the management took a call that yes, we need to be able to do something about this and put it into thing, and for that we need to hire somebody to be able to take this forward. That became priority. Then I'm sure at that point there were numerable other instances. So having said that, the plastic ban, for instance, I mean, I went into a complete, this thing mode to be able to look for alternative materials when a few states had started. Tamil Nadu, I think, was one of the first that banned plastic, and as soon as that happened, we went into complete rush mode to be able to look at alternative products, and that's a continuous journey, because we still realize that the PE coating in our glasses needs to be those products need to be replaced. We've come upon an amazing solution. We're trying to even reduce waste by that, through that solution. So at any given time, you would pick up 4 or 5. When you assess your value chain, you would pick up 4 or 5 of your most critical, most the issues that could have the most impact, and be able to address them, and then move on to the next thing in order of priority. That's how any strategy is worked out, right? I mean, so similarly, sustainability also, you would look at the ones that the lowest hanging fruit in terms of the largest impact. And of course, the next one also sounds similar, but then the first one is to be able to find those, and then and also correlate them to what could have the maximum impact.
Lastly, you mentioned something about reporting frameworks, the relevant ones. What is so important to know about the relevant? Aren't they just 1 or 2, or are there many frameworks, and you have to sort of figure out which one works for your organization?
So there are a lot of frameworks that are there. So for instance, in India, the more mature companies, when they started reporting, they went for GRI. However, when they started, I'm talking about early 2000, a lot of them started with the United Nations Global Compact, the 10 principles. What I was surprised to see was that there are still a lot of companies in the West that continue to report on the COP, the UNGCN communication of the COPs. So the COPs, they give you an open-ended canvas. So there's no directive. It's more about putting putting forward what you're doing in all those nine principles, I think 9 or 10, and to continue to report on them. So when you've got and put it in the public domain that this year I'm doing this, obviously the next year you're going to do more than that, right? So it's more about a continuous improvement kind of a framework. Then there is GRI, of course, which is the most popular, at least from our part of the world. There are many so there are standards and there are benchmarks. There's CDP, and there's now more recently European companies are asking portfolio companies to report on something called SFDR, which is a sustainable finance disclosure regulation, which has been mandated by the European Parliament, by the way. So and of course, back home, we have SEBI that's mandated BRSR for the top 1,000 companies. My sense is that this will soon extend to all listed companies. And what I see as far as the difference, because we've been reporting on BRR, which was the earlier version of BRSR, since at least since I think 2015 or 16. But when I came in, so it was a very basic document that used to be prepared, because it was more a question answer. This year round, they're asking for granular data, which you can provide only if you are actually doing stuff. So,
Okay.
so a couple of years ago, I could pick up a BRR and within the first 5 minutes, get to know whether the company's got things on ground or it's just great copy that's been written by a good copywriter.
Okay.
Yeah. So yes, there are many reporting frameworks.
So as a CSO, do you get to sort of decide which, I mean, I understand in SEBI, you have, if SEBI has mandated, you'll have to do that in India. but does one also tend to fill the others, or do you wait to see what's most relevant in your country of operation and you sort of fill that one? Is that how it works?
Yeah, so if the recent developments had not taken place, which is the mandate by the European Parliament, I was in any case pushing for GRI. Because while BRSR is a mandate, I would want to take the company a step forward. But now that there is we have a European investor and we've started getting queries on SFDR, I think GRI will need to go into will need to be deferred for a while, because my immediate requirement is to be able to fulfill the requirements of SFDR. I've done a mapping. I don't think there is very much that is very different. It's just a different format of reporting, because the data is all getting captured for BRSR in any case. So the BRSR is quite a comprehensive document, and if you do it with rigor, which means that if you do both the essential requirements and the leadership requirements, I think you can use. I mean, you're well positioned to be able to report against most of the other global frameworks, because it's quite a comprehensive document.
Do you have another slide for us, or should we stop presenting?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think I've already it's come out, but I thought I'll just recap it. So yes, sustainability is definitely driven by the industry you're in, because you can't just get up and say, oh, I feel like doing this because I like to do this, because and if it's not relevant to your industry, it's not going to have the desired impact. To some extent, yes, the geography as well, because by geography, I mean, if you're sitting in India and if you're a listed company and you're among the top 1,000, then you have little thing you can do. I mean, most of the top 100 companies, in fact, I would imagine almost all of them have already been doing GRI. And what they do is, they do a simpler BRSR, because they give a link to the GRI report. Many of the companies have moved to integrated reporting. Tata Steel has, ITC has, Chemicals also, I think, has Tata Chemicals. So there is more and more uptake on doing integrated reporting. I think it makes a lot of sense, especially when, and now it's the investor community that's taking interest. So I think it's it makes a lot of sense to link your business strategy with your sustainability strategy and be able to tell one story instead of telling two separate stories and then leaving it to people to create the linkages between them. Of course, so we've already covered the third one, which is the recap. So the geography, the industry, and of course, your investors. So I never thought this would happen. When I started my career, I was struggling to always create a business case for sustainability, CSR, DEI, and all the rest of it. But I think this generation is going to have less of a struggle on trying to sell the business case, and I think they can enjoy the developments that have taken place.
That's interesting. Maybe we can stop sharing the screen, Sangeeta. Just wanted to check, you said the top 1,000 current companies are sort of doing this, and you also mentioned that previously when they would file reports to what now the report looks like. I mean, you really have to have doing some work on the ground. So I just wanted to understand. Is this need for sustainability in corporates, is it being driven by because you have to do it, because it's a mandate, or is it slowly, the entire need to have a sustainable business is actually being driven because it's making more and more business sense, because there is, more and more requirement from the fact that, at some point, if not now, maybe 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years down the line, some steps that you take today will actually impact the business positively?
Yeah. So if I look at purely, if we talk about the program I spoke about, the accessible cinema program. Yes, it started as a business responsibility. Yes, it was something that the company felt that we must do as a responsible and one of the largest, even then, cinema exhibition companies. But we get numbers, right? I mean, you have to see it. It was surprising to see the hearing and speech impaired community is a very, very demanding community. One, they've done fairly well in this thing, and you will find a lot of people with hearing and speech impairment in IT, ITES, and similar industries, technology more so, and I've had the privilege of being, attending a few of their socials here, and it's amazing to see, how well they're doing, and they of course love seeing movies. Every time, if the subtitles, like for instance, if a movie says it has subtitles, and it's not showing on the booking platform, early Saturday morning, I start getting messages, that, Bangalore so-and-so cinema is saying that there are no subtitles. And then I go into a frenzy Saturday, trying to figure out. So initially, because we were doing some of it manually, we used to have all these issues. Then so of course, and people with physical challenges are now more and more preferring to come to PVR. So there in itself is your business case. A few years back, when I was handling communication and sustainability for Tata Power Delhi Distribution, this is early 2000 when privatization happened. There was, as everybody in Delhi knows, a lot of power theft. And as a result, when we took over, there were 56% aggregate technical and commercial losses. So while, the enforcement teams and used to go and do these raids in commercial areas, we use CSR to address the Jhuggi clusters and the thing. And in fact, DERC, the regulator, came up with a low-cost scheme for the Jhuggi clusters to have a fixed amount that they would pay for 2 fans and 2 tube lights. Because their concern when we did a survey was that the unpredictability of electricity, of metered connections. So the regulator got these things, and we did it purely through CSR, through an NGO, did sensitization and so on and so forth. And we also had a program in schools where, taking children as influencers to be able to dissuade certain practices. And these 2 programs, we were able to get many more conversions. In fact, so much so that the then CM Sheila Dixit actually complimented us compared to the 2 BSES companies who did it the business route. So clearly, I mean, there are problems, and problems that you can solve through sustainability. There are being sustainable is in the long run. I mean, there's a clear section of people who prefer to buy from companies that are known to be sustainable, and who think. Of course, now we are seeing investors preferring to invest in companies that score higher on ESG. In fact, now you have data that is available. I mean, you can go to Sustainalytics and go and enter the name of a company and see what their sustainability score is.
But Sangeeta, why are investors suddenly interested in what your sustainability score is, or what is it that's changed in the last 3-4 years that, I mean, first of all, is it a new phenomena? If it is a new phenomena, what has changed in the last 2 or 3 or 4 years that suddenly investors are making this a big criteria? Shouldn't they just be interested in how profitable your organization is and how much money they can make off you?
That's what they were, right? I mean, and then you had instances like Lehman Brothers and Satyam back home, where a company that was companies that were rated to be, Exxon, and many more examples where companies that were rated to be highly growth oriented, highly profitable, went and crashed for some either governance reasons or societal reasons or environmental issues. I mean, we had so basically, when we talk sustainability, we're talking about everything. We're talking about your safety practices. We're talking about how conscious you are of surrounding communities, and I would say it's not a new phenomenon for the simple reason IFC has 8 performance standards that they gauge projects on before the World Bank invests. But point is that it's the financial community has been slow uptake. And they needed an awakening call like the 2008 economic crisis to be able to wake them up and make them realize that just profit is not the only benchmark of a company that's growing well and doing well.
So we don't seem to have any questions coming in, but I just wanted to ask, and by the way, if anyone has any question, please feel free to put it in our chat box and we will pick it up. Sangeeta, I also wanted to understand, as a CSO, what are the 1 or 2 things that you hope, not just for you, but generally that you may have seen in your practice, that you believe, needs that some kind of empowering or some sort of thing that, perhaps would, the function or the role would do better going ahead? Are they some things that CSOs need to work on aside from technical skills? What would you say?
See, point is that I probably am the wrong person to ask that, because I come from a generation where, like I said, we struggled to create a business case. So I am more than happy that the CFO is now looking at what sustainability is doing. But having said that, yes, there are a couple of things. For instance, anything, be it when one moves along the sustainability value chain, and when you start making choices, one thing is very critical. Initially, companies have to be able to kind of invest more. For instance, we are looking at shoes out of recycled material. Incidentally, we've done uniforms. Our uniforms have moved to waste-to-wear fabric. So we're looking at similar things for. So there's an incremental cost of 30% that I'm trying to get an approval on. Similarly, my carpet option that I'm looking at, there's a sustainable carpet manufacturer that also has a take back program. So there again, I will need special approvals. So when there's a benefit that's coming to, one has to be able to realize that initially, especially since sustainable products are not made at mass scales as a lot of the existing products are. So, for instance, a shoe manufacturer that's been in existence and doing leather shoes at large scale is able to pass on the benefits of economies of scale, which this particular manufacturer is not. He actually gave us a breakup of the raw material and then said, okay, how much should I put a markup? Shall I put a markup of 5% or 6% for myself? That's how transparent his working was. So how do you negotiate, or how do you ask your commercial department to lower the cost there? So I think companies have to be, at least for the first few years, will have to be a little liberal with their purse strings, because in order to get maximized benefits in the long run, these investments will have to be made.
So we do have 2 questions. I'll take the one from Nishant first. wants to know what difficulties do you encounter in producing the sustainability reports, and how are you attempting to fill those gaps?
Well, of course, initially in the this year and probably the next, I think the big challenge is data, because there's some data that you're capturing, there's some that you're trying to capture, and there's others like scope 3 which you're still fumbling around and figuring out how to manage, especially in the kind of business we have. My scope 3 is so complicated. I'm doing a sustainable in an evaluation of my supply chain right now, and there are just the PVR suppliers exceed 2,400. And of course, I am yet to start looking at the Inox ones. There are duplications, there'll be overlaps, but nevertheless, and then the supplier base is so complex. You have the Dolbys and the Samsungs on one side, and then you have, AC servicing guys, or say somebody who's supplying buns and bread or something like that. So that's the kind of disparate variety of the supplier base that we have. So yes, scope 3 is definitely a challenge. Being able to capture data and the veracity of the data, etc., is the other challenge which most organizations are facing.
All right, there's a question, and perhaps I'm not sure if this is something that we can answer, but just wanted to check. This is Manas. Wants to know any insight on the effect of Malaysia and China banning inflow of scrap from around the world. How can Indian companies ensure that this scrap from around the world reaches here and we have a method to use it in our business?
Well, I think that might be detrimental. We have enough of our own scrap to deal with first. So I think if we can first get a hang on what we're going to do with our own, because it's such a large country, and I am anti-dumping. So I would imagine that I mean, of course, first, if we can figure out if we can do something really valuable with what we have. I mean, even now, it's so many organizations are still haven't figured out the EPR and how to be able to recycle what you sell. So e-waste itself is a huge problem still, even though we've had revisions since 2011. I think about 5 or 6 revisions to the e-waste laws. So I would imagine that a country like India has enough of its own waste to deal with before we can encourage it.
There's another question that's come from someone, I think it's Chandan Sarkar. What are the steps that we should take in the first 6 months if we join as a CSO in any organization?
The first two, of course, do a stakeholder assessment study, and assess your value chain, and assess what's most material to you. Those will bring out the biggest risks, and that's where you start formulating your strategy.
We have another question. This is I don't have a name here, but someone wants to know that they're hearing a lot about ESG funds these days, and they want to know, like CSR funds, can a portion of ESG funds be given to NGOs which are doing good work but are always struggling for fundraising?
Okay, let me make this very clear. There's nothing called an ESG fund. ESG is nothing else but a company's own environmental, social, and governance responsibilities, and how they are dealing with how they, of course, and that's why I keep emphasizing on the value chain. For instance, there was this panel discussion where there was this person from one of these the payment gateways. And there was me, and there was another person from, I think, Hero Motocorp. So basically, the person from the payment gateway was all about governance, because to him the governance piece is the most important. If he doesn't get the governance piece right, his business can crash. It's that critical. Whereas yes, governance is important to both Hero MotoCorp and to PVR, very important, but probably not as critical as the thing. So basically, let's understand that. So CSR deals with NGOs. CSR funds are the only funds that can be allocated to projects that NGOs bring. There is no this thing of giving funds without having proper projects in place. And when I say a project, I mean having a start point and an end point, and a duration to that thing, and being able to have clear milestones as to what it is that you want to achieve out of that project. If you take a sound project to a company, and if it's a valuable thing, I'm sure you will have takers under the CSR funds. But many NGOs don't understand what it means to be able to have a sound project. So no company now gives funds without a project, a proper project plan in place. So yes, in terms of, yes, there is somebody who's talking about green bonds and green loans, but then those don't qualify as funds for NGOs. What is what is being talked about, and what is this thing is social impact. So yes, if you have, for instance, if you're talking about, let's say a company wants to invest in social impact projects, maybe say you want to have you want to invest in green projects. You might want to invest in a solar power project, or there might be a greenfield. I heard of someone who out here in Punjab, it's an existing company, and they have started making electricity out of wheat husk. I mean the thing, and apparently has a high calorific value. Then there's an excellent project that's going on in my home state, where pine needles are being used to make briquettes, which have extremely high calorific value. So there are two things that are happening. Forest fires it'll reduce forest fires, and it'll create an avenue for fuel. So projects like that, I can imagine the companies wanting to fund. So that those are investments in creating an impact, and that's different. So if you have a great viable project, yes, which you can take it to organizations, and the organizations would invest in that. But then that's a pure investment thing. They would expect return. So if you're saying that your project costs 100 crores, and X company has invested 50 crores in it, then that company will expect 50% of your profits as well. So this is not like CSR that it goes and that doesn't come back. So this is actually a transaction that would say it's a pure investment, but an investment in a green or a social impact area.
We have one more question from Manas. In fact, Manas has lots of questions, but he wants to know if there are any authentic reading materials or any place that you can, sort of learn more to sort of gain insights about different initiatives that companies are making towards making a green supply chain. Is there any
Well, their sustainability reports are the best place to go and think, because I was just going through the ITC sustainability report today because I wanted to refer to something, and look at sustainability reports. They're the best source of seeing what all is possible and what companies are doing. And so for instance, if you have sometimes not just from your own industry, sometimes from parallel industries also, you can get excellent ideas on what organizations, what you can draw in terms of ideas and solutions for your issues.
We have one more question from Nishant. I'm not really sure if I understand what he's asking. He wants to know, what do you think about double materiality assessment, either for organizations or projects?
I haven't done double materiality, so I don't think I would be able to shed too much light on it. The fact that we've gone through single materiality is thing enough. But yes, I think I probably brings out a higher level of because from what my understanding of materiality is that you can identify what are your highest risks. So this is probably going 2 steps forward to be able to assess deeper down what could be potential risks in coming years. So I haven't, in fact, I have only recently come across double materiality, and I have not done it myself.
All right. I think, there's one more. I was almost going to wrap up, but let's see if we can. Again, somebody wants to know how SROI is calculated. Any trainings or learning material to understand it easily?
See, SROI, there's the SROI Institute that has a very robust framework. In fact, they also conduct trainings, and I had explored it some years back to look at, being able to impart that training in India. But it's a very closed focus group which does this. There are a few certified assessors in India, very few. It didn't have much of an uptake in India, from what I understand. But so the SRO, in fact, we had a call with this gentleman from SROI as well, and this was way back in 2016. But I haven't heard very many organizations taking on SROI per se. But you could contact them directly as well.
All right. I think we'll take a break here. And if you have any questions, please do feel free to put them, and we'll try and get them answered as we can. Thank you so much, Sangeeta. I hope this was an interesting session for you. And thank you so much for telling us so much about it. Harappa is running a program for Chief Sustainability Officers, but not from the technical aspect, more from the leadership aspect. So if anyone's interested, our website does have details. Please feel free to reach out. But thank you, Sangeeta. Really appreciate you taking time out for this. And we'll close the session.